Welcome to The Link. This is a program all about linking you with the resources in your community. I'm Joanie Sutter. Iran Nazario is the president and CEO of the Peace Center of Connecticut. He will be the guest on our show today and has worked the program management, gang prevention, youth outreach, and support field for 27 years and began as a volunteer on the streets of Hartford. He led a team of 16 men and women whose goal was to decrease the level of violence in the city, and since its inception, the group Peace Builders has served over 3,000 youth and has an over 80% success rate. Iran is an expert in gang prevention and mediation, a drug and alcohol prevention counselor, and certified violence mediator. Thank you so much for being with us today, Iran.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Before we talk about the Peace Center of Connecticut, I'd like to talk about your personal story a little bit.
Okay.
To find out how the center was developed is the individual at the helm. So tell me a little bit about your story.
Sure. So if I could fast forward till now, I'll just say that what you'll learn about in my story is really about all the obstacles that I overcame to be here. And I was born to a drug-addicted mom who suffered vicious, violent beatings from my dad as when they were together. That led her to come to Hartford, Connecticut, where she was forced to have childbirth of me. She had an emergency C-section because she had been beaten by my dad at one instance. So I was removed from her womb, born in Hartford. She eventually became addicted to opioids and heroin, crack, based on all the physical injuries she suffered. So that led to a very long life of her not being able to overcome that disease. And because of that lifestyle that she led, I was kind of thrust into the same kind of lifestyle. So right at an early age of about 5 or 6 years young, now I was removed from her custody and care due to child abuse and neglect. Because obviously folks who are using and addicted to drugs generally don't care well for their children. So for me, abandonment, pain, and anger, and drugs and that kind of thing, is uncertainty, were a normal part of my existence as a child. So I was taken from my mom, placed in a foster care home in New Jersey, where I spent some years there. Eventually, my father applied for custody at some point. We were awarded custody to my dad. When I say we, is my brother and I, my oldest brother and I. My mom had 4 kids, 2 from my dad and 2 from John's that she had unprotected sex with for drugs. So we were all removed from the home, but my brother and I remained together at the foster care home. My other 2 siblings were separated and sent in different directions. So when we arrived to my father's home, a few years later, we were also removed from his custody for child abuse and placed back into foster care, and from foster care back to my mom, who was still an addict. And now I'm older, maybe 11 years old, and now I can defend myself a little bit more. I can see things a little bit clearer. So my mom committed a crime, and she was going to be arrested, and we were going to be taken once again. So I ran away from home, and I spent the next 2 years, 2 and 3 years homeless in Hartford, and really started learning about being a man, being an individual by men who were homeless in the community. So you learn how to have this survival mechanism always constantly there. And one of the things that you adopt from that lifestyle is this sense of constant urgency to do something, because you just never know where the next break or food or whatever is going to come from. So you it actually becomes part of your DNA, part of your practice. So you're kind of never relaxing and able to focus on one singular thing. So around 13, 14, I went to jail for assault, and then continued a path of going back and forth through prison. Went about 7 different times. I went to jail as a young man for different assault cases. I was a really violent kid and a violent teenager, and then a violent 20-plus-year-old. And that was my coping mechanism. My mom had abused me physically. My dad had abused me physically. So for me, the only coping mechanism I thought existed was to hurt people when you felt like you were in a position of unfairness or hurt, or you felt like you had to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. So I went to jail at the age of 20 or so, and I joined a major gang where I spent maybe over 10 years in that gang. So ran the streets, got into wars with other gangs and other people that I knew, people that were friends of mine, that when the gangs came to Connecticut, you had cousins joining different gangs, and you had longtime friends joining different gangs based on where they were in the community, and that just kind of threw in another wrinkle of you having to hurt people you grew up with or you knew, and they having to hurt you. So again, everything was about focus on anger and pain, and just being able to protect things that you felt were yours. Your pride was a big deal. So that was kind of like my existence as a young man. And so I saw a lot of unfortunate incidents, a lot of violence, a lot of death, despair, and things like that, growing up. And eventually I started at some point feeling like this was becoming a greater burden on me, and I felt as if I had to do something different. There was something in me that was telling me, this is not good for you. I don't know what it was. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if I was just born with it, or it was just, as I say, guardians talking to me or something like that. But as I started to get older, I started to see more opportunities, and there was one instance where a professor at the UConn School of Social Work was doing a study on disproportionate minority hiring in the inner city, and he was passing out flyers and paying people to distribute the flyers. And I was asked to do it and be paid for it. Initially, I scoffed at it because, you're a tough guy. You're supposed to not, but initially, what I really know now, looking back, is that I was afraid of change and what change would mean. Because in order to become what I am today, you have to have a certain level of understanding about yourself, and you have to be willing to accept differences and move away from habits that that are not favoring to you. So eventually I bought into the offer, and I had my first experience outside of Hartford that wasn't court mandated or placed or whatever it was, by going to the University of Connecticut School of Social Work and volunteering, and then being paid for distributing flyers. And I started noticing that there were other human beings. Quite honestly, I was so immersed in that lifestyle that for me, no one else existed or nothing else existed. So I started to notice that people were functioning, that people were making things happen, and they were doing it, although they had some problems, because everyone has them, they were figuring out a way to do it. So I said to myself, how can I learn how to cope like they do? What are the resources that they have that help them get over these hurdles that they do, and how can I bring that back to my community to help my friends stop suffering? Because there's not one young man that I know, and I've worked with thousands of young men, that say to themselves, oh, I can't wait to suffer today, or I can't wait to get shot at today, or I can't wait to use drugs today. It's just something you grow up wanting to do. You fall into it, and eventually you become a prisoner to it. So I started to figure out ways that I could talk to actually the gang within, talk to a few brothers. Hey man, you ever thought about opening up a business, or you ever thought about stopping this violence and shooting the people that you love? And there are a lot of stories behind that. I had my oldest brother was in the same gang that I was in. My youngest brother was in the same gang that I was in. My two half brothers on my dad's side were Latin Kings, so they were on the opposite side of my gang. So, and then I have cousins that were Latin Kings and Solos and different gangs. So it was literally like you had to compete and fight against your own blood. And I've always been someone that wanted a family. Major reason why I joined was because I felt that there was a unified force, unified family, that you felt safe and you felt that they accepted you. But I wasn't willing to hurt my blood especially my brothers. So I figured out a way to change it from the inside. I bought into the purpose that I thought I had at the time. I spoke in front of a class of undergrad students at UConn School of Social Work, and I smiled because I was asked to speak about the gangs, and I spoke for maybe about 13 seconds, and I just shook like a leaf on a tree. I was terrified to be in front of these kids, but it wasn't a fear of them physically, like they could hurt me. It was more of a fear of, oh, now I have to be my true self. I have to expose my weaknesses and my challenges, and that's one thing that I was never taught. So as I continued on in my path, I figured that I could continue to do things, and I was still in the gang, so I had this loyalty to the people that had taken care of me for so many years, and then a loyalty to myself. It was a delicate balancing act, and eventually the my own safety won out, and my desire to help community won out. And I started working at UConn, left UConn, and then started a career working with young people. And 27 years later, I now have an organization that I founded back in 2016, and I'm really excited about that journey. But it was a challenging road to get here, because what you have to do along that path is you have to be able to not only face yourself, but also defeat all of the different thinking that you have when you are approached with stressors, and you were used to responding with aggression. How do you walk away from those things? How do you become a role model? How do you teach the young people you're working with now how to handle those stressors? That's really challenging. So that's kind of like a summary and short of my lifestyle, my story, and how I got here from where I was.
I've been interviewing people for 20 years, and I have never been without words, and I'm without words.
Oh, thank you.
You have achieved so much and have such wisdom within you that it's an honor to sit and talk with you.
Oh, thank you.
It brings me to tears to know what you've had to go through to get here. It's wonderful that you're doing this work, and we're going to talk about the work that you're doing now. But to change your conditioning to such a degree in order to have the awareness that you do is remarkable.
Thank you.
And you're one special guy.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Well, I mean, for me, it's, the fire that burns in me. I say this all the time. It never ceases to burn. And for me, it's about how many people can I prevent from suffering today. That's my goal, because suffering for all of us is very different. We can suffer the loss of a loved one. We can suffer the loss of a job. We can suffer many things. But for me, as I walk this earth, I've given a second chance, is what I feel. How can I use that second chance to impact people as in the best ways possible? It's very challenging. You have a dynamic and a certain culture nowadays where people have to kind of just bully through it, figure it out, get it done, or you get kind of eaten alive by the rest of society. But I've met so many amazing people that I believe are for bettering the community. So my fire is fed very well by these people I connect with. But I know that I haven't done anything yet. I need to continue to do what I'm doing in order to feel at whole, with my life. So,
what got you to the place where, you wanted to have a nonprofit organization called the Peace Center of Connecticut? I mean, it's one thing to go out and try to help as many individuals as you can personally. What
Right.
got you to the place? Because now you've been a Peace Center of Connecticut since January of 2017?
16, actually.
16.
Yes.
Okay, so we're 2 years, two and a
Yeah,
half
yeah.
years. As a formal group, I know
Right.
you've done a lot of other work, but
Yes.
what got you to that place where you said, okay, we need to organize all of this?
Right. Well, I had been part of many committees and different groups looking to improve the outcomes and the lives of people in different communities. So I was part of the Hartford Crisis Response Team. I was part of a number of other initiatives. And one of the things that I started thinking as the years went by is, why isn't this community, or why aren't these communities and these folks all unified as one to maximize their potential, especially when you consider the fact that you're going to have funds cut, you're going to have people move on, all that stuff. You need a central location that really can continue to make these efforts move. And I wasn't finding that. And I always wanted to be in a position of leadership of my own organization or something. I just didn't know what it was. It takes such a long time for you to develop and understand where exactly you want to be as a person. So you take jobs and you do what you do, but something kept calling me to have a nonprofit and give myself an opportunity to deliver the level of service and the quality of service and to do the work that I've always wanted to do and figure out, like I think pre-show we were talking about how we can connect dots, how we can connect people, and I wanted my opportunity at doing so. So I took on the challenge about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. I pitched the idea to someone, say, hey, what do you think about this? And the person says, oh my gosh, I love that idea. Let me introduce you to somebody else, and you pitch it to them. And I kept pitching the idea to different people, and then I started noticing that there was a need for it. So then I decided that I was going to take the leap and apply for a nonprofit organization and incorporate it, and here we are. But I just wanted to, if you look at my life story and all the connections I didn't have, and then once I found a connection for bad, I did a lot of bad and a lot of damage, right? I focused a lot of energy on hurting community, hurting myself. Now that I've found a way to do the opposite, why not dedicate as much energy and will and determination to connecting good things? So that's what drives me. That's the fire, and I think.
And the cool thing is, I think you found already and will continue to find that in this direction, the universe supports that and will propel you forward and bring things to you that you wouldn't even dream of, or that you couldn't even manufacture on your own. Where the universe doesn't support the negative. It's there and it's real and you lived it. But the universal support, God, whatever you want to call it, will push that momentum forward. Let's talk about the goals that you have, because you had to, as an organization, fine-tune your goals. I know you have a board of directors that's supporting you as well and helping to determine the strategic planning for the group and all that. But the goals I see here, connecting, sharing of best practices, providing a forum for that.
Absolutely. So we have this product or service called Peace Conversations, and our Peace Conversations are really focused on issues for different communities that lead to not such a peaceful existence or not a peaceful community. So we assess those issues, and then we bring people together they may not have ever met to have a dialogue, figure out what solutions they want to tackle to make that community more peaceful, and they take off to do that. So that's kind of like one of the services that we have and we want to do. So that's our connector part. That's the Peace Center of Connecticut.
Okay, and then you coordinate activities for individuals and organizations to respond to crises.
Right. So if there's an issue, I'll give you an example. We just had an event at Trinity College where we talked about a book released called Bullets into Bells, and that book focuses on the impact that guns have in the lives of people who have been victimized by gun violence. So that is a crisis. It's a public health crisis. So what we're doing is we're having dialogue with community leaders and folks who are from the community about what can we do to prevent those things. So we're responding to a crisis by bringing people together, and then we're supporting events that are happening in the community, whether I'm volunteering myself or my interns or board members are helping with those initiatives, or we're sharing their information, anything to bring more awareness and more groups to support in those causes to hopefully reduce gun violence. So that's kind of like a crisis response kind of thing. Also, if there is a crisis in the community where there are a number of shootings or whatever, and they need us to come out in numbers to support the victims or support the community with a presence or some type of support services, or refer people to services that can help them, we're willing to do that as well.
How do people volunteer with your organization?
Well, a person can either email me and suggest that they're interested in volunteering. They fill out a volunteer application. They interview with me or one of my volunteer coordinators just to determine where the fits are. So we make sure that your experience is just as pleasant as ours would be with you. And then they take off and they start volunteering. So they can volunteer for event-based on things. Like sometimes we'll support the 5Ks for the victims of Newtown. We'll support and we'll set up booths and work for them, all that. Or they can support some of our events. And we also have the Youth Peace Alliance, which is a youth group that we're starting now at the end of April, where we're going to identify 20 young people who will lead the communities forward in the future for peace efforts. So they can come down and learn more about that. Our Peace Hero events that we have, where we honor peace heroes not only for locally but on a national level. They can help coordinate, help volunteer at those events as well, with setup, breakdown, or preparing if they have a certain skill set with curriculum. Flyer development or anything like that, creation of flyers and all that. People can do that as well.
There are some of these peace heroes that you talk about. Two have recently written a book
Yes.
that I know are going to be at one of your events.
Sure.
So folks can support an event by going out and listening to these
Yeah.
speakers. And the two speakers, you want to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, so Pardeep Kalika is a Sikh, and he had a Sikh temple, mosque in Wisconsin. Arnold Michaelis is a former white supremacist, and they met in one of the most unfortunate incidents is a mass shooting at Pardeep's temple, where Pardeep's father and a number of other of his family members were killed by Arnold's white supremacist group. Somehow, we'll learn more, about them as we get to learn them more. They connected and started a group. They forgave one another, which is incredible, and formed a group by the name of Serve to Unite. So now they're traveling the world talking about forgiveness. You look at the different paths they came from, the different worlds they existed in. For these two men to forgive one another and then identify a purpose that deep is incredibly profound for me. So we're going to be honoring them as peace heroes, and we'll be honoring peace heroes every year throughout the state and also on a national level. My dream for that was that I wanted to make peace heroes your everyday person, that a young person or anyone in the community feel that they can connect to right away. We have our iconic symbols, right? We all know them. Dr. Martin Luther King just had his 50th anniversary, Maya Angelou, and a number of others. Mm-hmm. But if I could say that I could touch those individuals at this point, I can't, right? So what I want to be able to do by having these folks be honored is start a legacy hall that can be visited by young people so they can learn that you can be a hero every day. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be that iconic to be a hero. So this is where we're starting with these two men.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the everyday heroes is really what it's all about.
It is.
It's about us.
It's about us.
Every day.
Yeah, what are we willing to do to ensure that our communities are better? Right. And we can say that the internet connects us or that other things connect us, but what really connects us is human contact, like actually being in front of you, talking to you like we're doing right now. And I think sometimes we can get lost in cyberspace and all those different platforms, and we really need to get back to saying hello to your neighbor, connecting, and making sure they're well. Your neighbor is well, your community is well, and so are you. And that's the goal of this.
And I think about Mother Teresa and how someone had asked her, "How do you do the work that you do?" And there's so much hurt out there, and it's just about one thing at a time, just one thing at a time.
Absolutely.
So we have about 2 minutes left. Our time has gone so fast, but I'd like to have you tell us, because we talked before the show, many times in the communities there are people who want to do more, and I think funneling through an organization such as yours is important because you know where the needs are, you know the work that's doing, you know the communities that are reaching out. But what are some other ways that the public can help?
Well, folks can, if you're interested in participating at the Peace Center, we are looking for board members with expertise in legal services, obviously being a brand new organization. We're looking for folks in fund development, capital fundraising, that kind of thing, fund development, strategic planning. As an organization, you need those things, but folks can also volunteer for our events or any expertise that you may have to help bring the organization forward. So hopefully you'll join us.
That's wonderful. And the website and all of your contact information is going to be at the end of the program. What would you like to leave us with today?
I am one person who is on a journey to make connections and figure out a way that Connecticut as a whole can start communicating the message that we are a peaceful state. So what I'd like to leave you with is that you have every skill set and every opportunity and ability to do that. All it takes is you caring and reaching out. Your lane is what I call it. I say you have a lane of expertise and a lane of desire that I may not have, but collectively, I think we can be more powerful, be more effective. So I think I can leave you with that.
That's wonderful. It's been an honor
Yeah,
to
thank you.
interview
It's
you
been
today.
an honor to be here.
Thank you for being with us, and for everyone at Nutmeg TV, until next time.